In this video, I speak with staff software engineer at Gitlab, Paul Slaughter, on how to make your first contribution to Gitlab or any other open source project. This video is a little bit long, but super informative, and it's going to be a multiple part series. Check below for the chapters where I explain in detail what we're covering if you want to skip ahead to the relevant or important information that you need to contribute to GitLab.
What's up, Paul? Thank you for joining me. Um, I'll have you intro yourself, but Paul has been a mentor of mine for the last 5 years and one of the best engineers I've ever worked with. I'm not sure he was going to say that, so I'm going to say it for him. Um, and yeah,
I
I'll let
was
you.
definitely gonna say I'm one of the best ones you've ever worked with.
Yeah, hey, it's good to know where you stand. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, kind of what you're working on.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for setting this up, Scott. And I also appreciate it sounds like you do a lot of promotion for doing open source contributions, specifically calling out GitLab. I think that's really great for software engineers all around. But working for GitLab, I also really appreciate it. One of my favorite things I get to do as a software engineer working at GitLab is interacting with the wider community. So GitLab is a large open source project that we get community contributions from customers of GitLab, from college students to people that are, working in other careers, wanting to get started in software, or other people that, just use our free version of GitLab and want to contribute. It's I think for the most part, a pretty rewarding software experience, because GitLab's used by lots of users, and thankfully we have the resources to make sure that community contributions don't get ignored and are promoted. But yeah, I've been working at GitLab for almost 7 years now.
Oh,
I've been doing software engineering for like uh coming up like 13-ish years. Um, and I enjoy doing what I do, but I mostly I've been really enjoying working at GitLab. This is the longest I've been at a company, and I enjoy it for the community contribution reasons that we mentioned. Um, the product's pretty great when it's great, uh, but I really, really enjoy the people I get to work with. Namely, when I got to work with you, Scott, uh, I've made a lot of really good connections, and it's been great keeping up with folks that pass through the GitLab doors.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I knew this earlier on in my career that had the biggest problem is how do you get experience without experience that actually matters, where you can kind of um, break down the barriers or questions that companies might have, right? Oh, have you worked on an engineering team? All these meta skills. And the most obvious one is contributing to open source to get those skills. But the barrier to entry is so high in terms of even just setting up your environment, which is why I think people gravitate towards like pet projects, to-do lists, things that don't actually move the needle. Um, so something that people keep reaching out to me for on the channel is they say, well, I don't know where to start. How, okay, I want to contribute to GitLab. You've convinced me, like all this dopamine rush. And then it's like, oh my God, this is so hard. So what would be your first step as someone that knows how this whole ecosystem works to get started?
Yeah, I think for our conversation we're going to focus on GitLab, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
open source projects out there. Um, I before diving into GitLab, anyone that's interested in contributing to open source, I think you'll find at least two categories of projects. There's a category that has focused development by paid engineers that receive open source contributions. And then there's a category of projects which maintainers are working for free, everyone's working for free. And um, sometimes it's hard to get feedback and a positive experience on the if I'm brand new and I need some help with something on a open source project where even the maintainers are not able to give their best energy on pushing the project forward. Whereas with larger projects that have funding back behind it, like GitLab, or you have other open source projects like all the new stuff like GIMP, or there's Krita, and you have Godot, a bunch of game engines are open source. Microsoft VS Code, which a lot of us are probably using on a day-to-day to code. Your editor is open source. A lot of these have funding, and you'll find are, even though the projects are big and daunting, if you just take a breath on find the starting place and just go forward slowly, I think you'll find yourself being able to contribute in a really positive, efficient way. And they have a lot of support for people, brand new that need some help. So a lot of these have like Discord channels and stuff that you can hop on as well. But yeah, let's explore what it's like doing to GitLab. So what do you think? I'll share my screen and
Yeah,
we'll
let's do
see
it.
what that looks like.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's say I know that GitLab is a project, but I don't know where it lives. So like for me, if I'm searching up, if I know that Krita, if you haven't heard of Krita, it's a really awesome painting open source application. But I see, hey, this is an open source program. That's telling me the code's got to live somewhere. And I could try to Google search for it, but often if I go to just their main website, I should be able to find it somewhere. Software, source code. So usually wherever their main site of the application or program I'm interested in contributing to, I should be able to find like a GitHub icon. If you're lucky, you might find a GitLab icon, or you'll find a source code thing written out here. But so I'm going to gitlab.com, and I was curious, all right, what would gitlab.coms look like? I'm looking at, so like from the top, you see the top above the fold page is mainly focused on like the marketing information of use our product. As a contributor, it might be somewhere around there, but I find it easier to scroll to the bottom and look here. And I'm looking for things like community or contribute or source code. And I do see community here. So I'm going to hop into that. It looks like these are like user community stuff. Okay, co-create with GitLab. All right. So here's where you've got a lot of support for being successful contributor to GitLab. I'm looking for my keyword of trailing here is contribute. I'm still trying to find where does the project actually live. But it looks like there's a Discord. So if I needed help, I'd be able to probably get either someone from our contributor success team or the wider community helping me as a new contributor. That's a really, really positive community that love helping people. So becoming a part of it is highly recommended and a rewarding experience. But yeah, let's see what happens if I hit contribute. I get another page. I'm right now, I'm gonna tap the brakes. But when you started this recording, you mentioned about talking about mentioning contributing to GitLab, and people get excited, and then you get discouraged because there's so much information. So I think contributing to open source in general is a great, great skill to have as a software engineer, because there's something that's happening in the background that you're training without realizing it. And I need to be able to pick up a new context. I need to be able to map it to something that's familiar to me. And I need to be like regularly filtering out signal and noise. I'm looking for the signal taking me to their project. There's a lot of information. I could spend, some people are wired where they're going to want to read everything. I'm not that way. So when you look at a page, try to, if I'm trying to find something, try to find, don't waste your time feeling like you have to understand everything. Try to focus on the path that we're looking for right now, which is where does the project live, and what are some instructions for me getting started. That's this button right here. So I'm not really going to read the rest of the page. I'm going to click on the button. Okay, now we're in a new page. I'm here in the docs. All right. So yeah, here this is it. So you'll want to create a GitLab account. And then you can request access to our community forks. So we actually have a fork of our if I go to, let me go, yeah. Okay, if I become a member of this group, then I'll receive an onboarding issue as a new community contributor. And this is all of this is just to help you get your best foot forward with contributing to GitLab. We still haven't quite found the code base yet. But here's some ways to contribute. You can contribute through, we have some online editor options, but what I would highly recommend is to be able to contribute to the broadest set of issues. You're going to want to make sure you have the full project running locally. So talking about what am I focusing on when I'm seeing a new open source project that I can contribute to? I want to find the code. I want to find the list of issues. I want to figure out how I can get it set up, because I'm not going to be able to work well if I don't get that feedback loop of I make a change and
Right.
I actually see it in the application. With that being said, there's a set of issues you can contribute to that you can kind of code blind, that you don't need the full thing running.
Hmm.
For instance, if there's like a issue I find where we're renaming a variable, as a community contributor, I can do some static analysis on the code and just find and replace the variable and kind of, hope that everything works. And hopefully in my merge request, I'll include that I didn't actually test this out locally. But most of the time you won't find issues like that. You'll find issues that actually require that feedback loop. And so I think though that definitely becomes a barrier of entry for contributors, is setting up the project. But projects that have you know have a good engineering base behind it, usually it's really sweet when there's a toolkit for that simplify the project setup. So here personally, I would recommend checking out the standalone GDK, or you could do this. There's two different options of using this thing. But yeah, here's some documentations for how you would get this running locally. And we're not going to spend time going through it right now, but I'm still looking for a link to the main project. And if I can't find it in the link, then I'm going to create an issue so that we update our documentation so it's incredibly obvious. But let's see if it's, no, I don't see it. I don't see it here. Well, anyways, you can also find it by going to gitlab.com after you've created an account. I'm sure it would be in that onboarding issue that they're talking about as well. But if I go to gitlab.com, which looks a little different than github.com, and I sort by stars, I'm certain that our project is the most starred project. Yes, it is on GitLab. And if I click on this one as the top one, okay, I'm getting some warnings. I see this looks like a weird project. I see a commit that all of these files all have the same commit. So I'm getting a feeling that, oh, here's some project information. GitLab FOSS is a read-only mirror of GitLab. But all development has now moved. Okay, big deal. So I'm looking for that kind of signal. So I found something that stuck out to me as weird. This commit that all of the files got touched with the same commit sticks out to me that this is a weird project. And I'm looking for some information that, like, am I even in the right place? And this is telling me, no, it's here. Okay. Boom. All right. This is GitLab. This is the project, man. Um, so I found the code. That's obviously the first thing. One of the first things I want to do with the open source project is find the code. I found some other documentation to help me get started setting this up with a development kit locally. I found some community information for how I could become a part of the community, which um, if I'm contributing open source, I highly, highly recommend you're a part of a community. Don't be, don't be shy and keep to yourself. This is a big, professional skill that you get to exercise contributing to open source. I don't know, Scott, what do you think of that? Just the soft skill of contributing to open source and formulating your questions and being part of
Yeah,
the community.
I think um, no one talks about it, but I think that's actually more important than the hard. You, I mean, it depends what lens you're looking through, but if you have a baseline level engineering experience and I have two people, I'm going to take the person that has developed those soft skills because regardless of how social you are or outgoing, it takes a long time to develop even what you said about like signals and filtering through signals and finding things and making decisions. Then you have the skill of isolating an issue and then reproducing the issue and then asking questions and then fixing the issue and then and then communicating things in your MR. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of time to work through. That doesn't just happen. You don't just build a to-do app and you figure this out. How you take feedback. Like if I'm an open source contributor and I get an MR review from you, there's going to be like 30 comments. And then if you don't know how to take feedback, how can you expect to work on
Yeah.
a team? So I think those are honestly more important than being able to program.
100%. And I that's a really, really good point. And that's why to anyone who's looking to ramp up what their resume looks like, their position in the job market, contribute to open source on anything, whatever, and no matter how small the issue is. This is not a time for me to display my technical prowess. This is a time for me to display my ability to collaborate,
Mm-hmm.
just my ability to pick up a context. Like, hey, I can start on a new project. Like, that's a huge win. The number of time it hasn't happened often, but I've definitely seen companies hire an engineer who just really failed at onboarding. Like, they can create their own little project, but for some reason they have a hard time receiving and being able to adapt to another project. And
Right.
that's a big, big win. So if I can say, oh, I contributed to this project, and it doesn't matter how big or small it is, as someone that hires engineers, that's super valuable to me. That's telling me you actually have, some of those soft skills, which can really make or break. The technical stuff can be taught,
Yep.
but sometimes the soft skills is that's what I'm really interested in when if I'm hiring somebody.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for watching. That was a ton of information, but hopefully you gained some insights and got some details onto making your first contribution to open source. Like I said in the beginning, this is a multiple part series. The next part, we'll be working on how to pick your specific issue to select within an open source project or GitLab.